Hey guys, Professor Griff of Public Enemy, did an interview. And part of the interview, this is just a snippet, a very small part of the interview that I wanted you guys to hear, where he spoke briefly about Kanye West and what's going on with him. Here is the footage.
So everything that we've kind of used to do and interact with and resonate with, we lose in touch with the soul. So when you look at someone like Kanye West, and you'll see him, like you said a few minutes ago, he'll say something very profound, very deep, make you scratch your head and think like, wow. And then you end up hearing some stuff from him like, wait a minute, where did that come from? But you see, that is the clinical definition of what being bipolar is, though. Bipolar extremes. You understand what I'm saying? Going from one extreme to the next. And this is what you're seeing simply because they trying to stay relevant in a world that was made without a thought of you in it. Let me clarify that. So this world was made and they didn't have you in mind.
So guys, let me just get into what bipolar is. For a lot of folks who are not aware, it's from one extreme to the next. And we see Kanye exhibiting those symptoms. He goes from one extreme to the next. I have to say allegedly because YouTube want us to say allegedly for legal purposes. So everything I say in this video is alleged. I don't know if he's on medication or not, but he exhibits bipolar symptoms. And I think he has even admitted, and by saying that, it's not to put the person down. When you say someone is bipolar, a lot of people have this negative connotation that, oh, this person must be crazy, they're off their rocker. No, it's just the brain, how it's working. You may have a thought that is very concise, and then in 1 minute you have that thought that you're making sense, and the next minute it's the complete opposite, where you are to the extreme, where you're talking in an extreme manner that people are scratching their head and, what is he saying? What is he really trying to say? And in other words, you're not making any sense, but it's how the brain is operating. So instead of labeling people as crazy, you need to understand why they're exhibiting those behaviors, that they're not crazy. In the society that we live in today, if a person is diagnosed as being bipolar, everybody says, oh, he or she is crazy. No, they're not crazy. Their thought pattern is out of whack. It's not concise. They're not thinking things through clearly. And a lot of times when they go on medication, the synapses that's being fired in the brain, that comes under control with medication, that they can put sentences in a more concise manner and construct their sentences properly. I remember when I was growing up, I've always heard about manic depression. When people get very, very depressed and they may talk and be happy in 1 minute and the next minute they're sad. They used to call that manic depressive state. And today's society, they call it bipolar disorder. And if you look at it, a lot of us have that disorder, okay? Because we can be happy and joyous the 1 minute and the next minute we're crying. I see a lot of internet people have that disorder and they don't know that they have that disorder. They're happy 1 minute, the next minute they're sad and crying, and they don't know why. It just comes on. That's a state of being bipolar. So let me read the clinical definition. In WebMD, it says bipolar disorder, formerly called manic depression, is a mental condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs. That's when it is at a mania, hypomania stage, emotional highs and lows. The lows are the depression. So you can be happy 1 minute and sad the next minute. You can go in and out from being hypomania to mania. the highs and the lows phase, low phase or the depression phase. And if you look on television, you look at all these reality shows, you see people go in and out of that phase all the time. And they can be diagnosed as being from 1 minute to the next without any warning. Bipolar disorder, they can be diagnosed as having that, but they themselves don't know they have it. I'm not talking about those reality shows like Real Housewives of Atlanta, where a lot of it is scripted. You know, they give them a script, they know what to say, and they put on an act. I'm talking about real TV, when they follow people in their daily lives and they're not putting on. This is just how they are, how they live. This is their life. So when you get into this bipolar disorder, so when I say reality TV, those are the shows I'm talking about. You may become depressed, you may feel sad or hopeless, and lose interest in pleasure in most things, most activities. When your mood shifts to the mania part or the hypomania, less extreme than being on the high part of the mania, you may feel euphoric, full of energy, or unusually irritable, like if you're hyper. These mood swings can affect sleep, energy, activity, judgment, behavior, and the ability to think clearly. So when people are going through this mania phase of this high, they get very restless and irritable, and maybe you see them laughing a lot, or an inability to focus properly, construct their sentence pattern, and it's just that high, just how the brain is operating in that moment. So what doctors do, they put people on medication so they can be calmer and they can construct their sentences more clearer when they put them on these meds. And it's for them to not have those extremes of the highs and the lows. That's what the medication does. It takes care of the big highs and the big lows, and you're somewhere in the middle. So you can be working within a framework of normalcy. The Mayo Clinic says although bipolar disorder is a lifelong condition, you can manage your mood swings and other symptoms that comes with it by following a treatment plan. In most cases, bipolar disorder is treated with medications and psychological counseling, like going to a psychotherapist or psychoanalyst. But folks, don't look down on people who have this disorder. Although I don't have it, when I say us, I mean folks out there in the diaspora, in the community, all around you, even some of your own family members may have it. And we are not diagnosed. Because if you just look in your community, among your family and your friends and within your household, your siblings, your mom, your dad, and you examine and you study them, you will find that a lot of them have bipolar disorder, but it has never been diagnosed because they don't think they have it. Hell, you may have it. When you're yelling at your kids and you're happy 1 minute, you're sad the next, you're yelling at your husband and you don't know why, you're cussing him out, and then the next minute you're happy as a lark. That's a bipolar disorder. In any event, there are several types of bipolar and related disorders. They may include mania or hypomania and depression. Now, symptoms can cause unpredictable changes in mood and behavior, resulting in significant distress and difficulties in life. Because if you're going to go around cussing people out 1 minute, you're sad the next, you're happy the next, people are not going to want to be around you. And you're going to have problems with relationships. Whether those relationships are with your close family or your co-workers on the job. So there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 disorder, you had at least one manic episode that may be preceded or followed by hypomania or a depression episode where you are happy one minute, sad the next. That goes for most of us, right? In some cases, mania may trigger a break from reality, like psychosis, when the person is seeing things that are not there or talking to people who are not there. Now, if you start talking to yourself, and especially if you're answering back, you are into that new category of being schizophrenic. You know, there's an old running joke that you can talk to yourself as long as you don't answer back. They're actually hallucinating, so they're having a mental break from reality. Then there's another type of disorder called cyclothymic disorder. And you've had at least 2 years of this disorder, or 1 year in children and teenagers. Adults, you have to have at least 2 years to be classifying this particular group. Children and teenagers, 1 year. So the first type I spoke of, the type 1 disorder, that's where most people fall into. The lesser disorder that the children and teenagers fall into, most people don't fall into that category. But there are other types of disorders that has to do with bipolar related disorder that is brought on by drugs, alcohol, or a medical condition. Such as the medical condition would be like Cushing's disease, multiple sclerosis, or a stroke. Then you can fall into that pattern of extreme highs and lows of your emotions and making sense of what you're saying. You might be speaking in a random pattern, highs and lows of just exhibiting emotion. So according to the Mayo Clinic, bipolar disorder type 2 that the teenagers and young adults fall into, they say it may not be milder. It may not be a milder form of bipolar 1 disorder, but it is a separate diagnosis. While the mania episode of bipolar 1 can be severe and dangerous, individuals with bipolar 2 can be depressed for longer periods of time, which can cause significant impairment. So although bipolar disorder can occur at any age, typically it's diagnosed in the teenage years or early 20s. Symptoms can range from person to person, and symptoms may vary over time. So in a nutshell, mania and hypomania, the highs and the lows of bipolar, are 2 distinct types of episodes, but they have the same symptoms. Mania is more severe than hypomania and causes more noticeable problems at work, school, social activities, as well as relationships. That's how bad it gets sometimes. So mania may also trigger a break from reality, psychosis, and require hospitalization, because you don't want that person running around thinking they're seeing things and running into the streets into oncoming cars, or they may not even see the car. So both manic and hypomanic episodes include 3 or more of these symptoms. Now you know you have bipolar disorder if you have 3 or more of these symptoms. So let me read the symptoms to you guys, and then you can diagnose yourself. The first is abnormality, upbeat, jumpy, or you're wired. You know, when people say, oh my God, that person is wired, they are so upbeat and hyper. We call it hyper. The second thing is increased activity, energy, or agitation. The third is exacerbated sense of well-being and self-confidence. The fourth is a lack of sleep, when you don't feel as though you don't need sleep for days, like having a bad case of insomnia. The fifth, unusual talkativeness. The sixth, racing thoughts. The seventh, distractibility. You're easily distracted and your thoughts are just racing. You're talking, out of your mind. So moving on to number 8. Poor decision making, for example, going on a buying spree. When you know you need to buy Pampers for the baby, you're going to go buy clothes for yourself and spend all the money and have no money left to buy Pampers. That's poor decision making. Number 9, taking sexual risk or making foolish investments. A good example is if you know someone has a sexually transmitted disease and you don't protect yourself. You sweep it under the rug and you sleep with a person anyway, although you know better. That is taking a risk without any care for your own life. So some people have it more than others. And in Kanye's case, we see it all the time. I guess when he's excited or he's irritated, then it's brought on. Oh boy, that sounds so familiar with a lot of us, doesn't it? So a lot of you can be classified as bipolar. So you see, you're functioning under that diagnosis. If you self-diagnose yourself, you are still functioning. So you see, you're not crazy. And so when some people have been diagnosed of being bipolar, most of them are not crazy. Some of them are to the extreme, yes, where they hallucinate. But by and large, the average person, you can say is bipolar. I see a whole lot of bipolar people around me on TV, in the supermarket, when I go to the doctor, grocery store, school, you name it. They're all around us, and they have not been diagnosed, and they're functioning just fine. It's just every once in a while they go to the extreme, and then, to the extreme left or the extreme right before they come back in the middle. Now they're not crazy. They just need medications to control their thought pattern and the extreme mood swings. And the other features that comes with being bipolar. For example, if you are crying and you can't stop crying, maybe you're depressed, you're melancholy, you are just anxious, you're just so talkative, you can't stop talking, maybe you're sweating. When the action of talking is going on, when you increase that energy of talking and moving around, then you may become sweaty. So you may feel anxious or distressed or, any of those symptoms that comes on all of a sudden. It could be one, it could be, they said 3 or more. And you can have 3 or more of those symptoms. And you know that you're in a crisis mode and maybe you should go take your medication or seek help. Get to your doctor's office and discuss it with your doctor. And for a lot of us who have not been diagnosed, but we have this disorder, now you're aware that maybe you should get checked out. So we're living in a day and age where everybody falls under some kind of condition. If you think about it, you're going to have something if you're not diabetic, if you don't have high blood pressure, or maybe you're some other thing that you have. Clinically, mentally, physically wrong, all of us fall into a category. That's how psychologists have it these days, and psychiatrists and the health professions. Everybody's put into a category. So your category may be bipolarism, which can be fixed with medication just to get it under control in those times when it's to the extreme. So YouTubers, I'm over and out. That's my little morning tidbit. I got up this morning and I just figured I'd make a video on bipolarism. So take care of yourselves and each other. Have a blessed day, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel and to this video. And if you want to read up more on the subject, pull it up on Google Web. Everything is on the internet. Have a blessed day. Thank you for watching.